a clinical psychologist, and she is in much demand right now, sharing her message of how to stay sane during a crisis such as the one we're going through right now. But it's my honor and privilege to introduce to my friends here locally, my Rotary Geek friend, Dr. Mary Berg.
Thank you, darling Tiffany. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's grown exponentially, just like the virus. I have 51 scheduled so far. So I have been as far as Kenya, Africa. And today, after this, I'll be in Hawaii. So been to British Columbia, Halifax, a few other places. India has invited me, but I haven't heard back for sure on that yet. So I'm having fun doing this. Talk about vocational service, which isn't something I usually get to do because of confidentiality and such. But this is a great way for me to do vocational service. So I'm really having fun doing it. So thank you for inviting me. So if you all are like the rest of the world, you're probably at this point feeling a little overwhelmed by COVID-19. And it's just coming at us, you know, just like a fire hose. And I know that's causing a lot of people to feel mentally, emotionally, and physically fatigued. These are very strange times. So the first thing I want to talk about is information. Now, normally when a patient comes to me and presents a problem, I like for them to be able to gather more information because information is power, but not in this case. Information in this case is overload. So my first piece of advice to you is at this point, you can now begin to limit the amount of information that you're allowing into your environment. My recommendation is just twice a day. That may be hard for some of you, but just twice a day. And truly rely on reliable sources, not sensational or social media. You don't need all the banter and you don't need all of the noise. You just need to know what you need to know. And that is typically, I start my day with what do I need to know that is directly local to me. So my state information, perhaps a state website, a county website. And that allows me to keep myself safe, my colleagues safe, and my patients safe. A lot of my patients don't know what resources they should be accessing. So I have become a resource to them. So it's important for me to get them very local information as to what the rules are, when you're supposed to wear masks, when you're not, when the cutoff date is, you know, all of that information is important and pertinent in my world. I then typically go throughout the day without looking at anything. It's not important to what I do, you know, on a minute-to-minute basis. So I wait until the end of my day and then I check a more global resource because after all, I'm a Rotarian and that makes me a citizen of the world. And my family of Rotary is all over the world. So I do want to be abreast of what's happening in the rest of the world and other countries. I do want to be well informed. So I typically check a reliable source at the end of the day for global information. Now, what's also important with regard to information is knowing when to say enough is enough completely. So my personal rule, and this was even prior to COVID-19, I never check news after 7 p.m. Your mind and brain and body need time to decompress from the day, from the stresses of the day. You need time to recover. So no negative information, no social media regarding COVID, any of that, no news after 7 p.m. So my second tip is regarding routine. Routine is actually a predictor of personal well-being. And just like children, adults actually do better when they know what is expected of them, when they know what their schedule is going to be like. And that's especially true when you're under stress. So, and in fact, the lack of routine can make you feel lethargic and doubtful. So when you're working from home, it's probably even more important that you create and stick to a regular routine. But if you're doing what I'm doing, 99.9% of it is now on this thing, the computer. So in order to break up some monotony of working at home and the monotony of staring at a computer all day long, I would strongly suggest that you break your 8 hours a day into 2-hour increments. So at the end of each 2 hours, I want you to step away from the computer. And if you live in a beautiful place, which I think you all do, you get sunshine like crazy, not here where I live. If you can, go outside for a 10-minute break. Soak up some vitamin D, do some brisk exercise just for 5 or 10 minutes. Take a quick walk around your block. If you can't do that, simply go to another room of the house. Change positions, change your view, and do something that engages a different part of your brain, a more creative part of your brain. You can read a novel for 10 minutes. You can listen to some nice music. You can do some stretching. I often just jump on my treadmill for 10 minutes. Whatever I need to do to break it up and to engage some other part of my body and brain. So now routine also means that you are taking care of yourself. The stay-at-home rules does not mean we have to just throw it all to the wind. I know if you were anything like me, those first 2 weeks meant that you watched a lot of Netflix and went off your diets, maybe ate a lot of bread like I did, but life is still moving at an incredible pace. So really it's time to accept this as our new normal, for at least for now. So I would encourage you to write down fitness goals, nutrition goals, and hydration goals every day. And I mentioned hydration because your body can actually dehydrate at a faster rate when you're under stress, anxious, or depressed. So my goal is between 60 and 80 ounces of water per day. Writing down your goal actually increases your own personal accountability to it and probability that you'll actually attain it. So write those goals down every single day. So I want to shift now and talk a little bit about brain chemistry. I want to talk about a fun little neurotransmitter that's called dopamine. And dopamine is responsible for mood elevation, for making us happy, euphoric even. And when our brain releases dopamine and we really feel it, that makes us want more. So I would like to teach you 2 ways that you can actually force a dopamine dump into your brain, how you can force the release of dopamine into the presynaptic gaps. The first is with gratitude, and there's 2 ways to experience gratitude. One is by reflection. So I'd like all of you right now to simply reflect on something that you're grateful for. Okay, and I say the word reflect because it's not just saying it, but it's feeling it. And if you notice, some of you, I saw a few people start to smile a little bit. It can be something huge, like I'm grateful for my health, for my spouse, for my family. It can be something small, like today I'm grateful for bees, B-E-E-S, bees, because I'm eating this wonderful honey that I found in the back of a cupboard because I cleaned out my kitchen cupboards over the weekend. And I found this really great honey that I probably would have never found otherwise. And it's delicious. So I'm grateful for bees. It can be something that tiny. The other thing to do with gratitude is to give it away. So at the end of today's session, sometime during today, I would like for you to approach someone else, either on the telephone or in person, and tell them what it is about them that makes you grateful. Doing that, giving that to someone else will not only help you to release dopamine, it'll force the release of dopamine in the recipient. And that's even more powerful. And that's a little bit of service. It's a way of being emotionally doing service. So try that today and see what happens and reflect on how it feels. Now, the second way that you can really release dopamine into your brain, and we're all going to do it together. I'm going to ask you to mimic me exactly, okay? On my count of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's some great smiles. All right. Awesome job. So everyone just leaned in and smiled, and guess what just happened? You just got a big old blast of dopamine into your brain. And again, if you reflect, you should still be able to feel it a little bit. You notice that you're smiling. Interesting little factoid here is that the brain has no idea whether your smile is fake or whether it's real, whether it's happened naturally. All the brain knows is that it feels the muscles in the face forming that natural smile, and it goes, oh, she's smiling, and it releases dopamine. So even with my depressed patients, we do smiling exercises in our sessions. And I actually have them do that as homework, to stand in the mirror and to smile at yourself. You'd be amazed how quickly you can change your mood by doing that for 10, 20, 30 seconds. So try that too when you're feeling low. Now, the greatest enemy to dopamine is actually anxiety. And the fastest way that you can become anxious is by taking your mental state and your thought process into what I call what-ifing. So this is like, what if this goes on for more than 60 days? What if I lose my business? What if I can't pay my bills? What if someone I know or love gets sick? All that what if future thinking wreaks havoc on dopamine. Now, anxiety lives best when it's in the future, when the what if thinking. Anxiety thrives there. It also does pretty good in the past. So with would have, could have, should have thinking, anxiety really digs that too. But where it has the toughest place staying alive is in the right here, right now, mindful thought, being absolutely present right where you are. Anxiety really struggles to be alive there. So when you catch yourself what-ifing or would have, could have, should have-ing, remind yourself to come back to the present, be mindful, and just be right here, right now. Now here's how it works in your brain. Here's what actually causes the physiology of anxiety. So when you experience some form of fear or some reason to be fearful, the amygdalas, which are two little almond-shaped gizmos in your brain, one in the left hemisphere, one in the right, in the limbic system, those light up and they send messages to the hypothalamus, and that is what causes that fight, flight, and freeze response. And then you get all that autonomic nervous system response, like sweating, heart palpitations, butterflies in your stomach. That would be me. That's how I know I'm anxious. And that's how we experience anxiety. So I would like to give you 2 ways that you can actually turn that system off. And this goes for even people who have anxiety disorders or panic disorders. These are the techniques I use with my patients to train them to turn their amygdala systems off. Because they typically have problems with that relay system. So the first is with deep breathing exercises, and I'm going to demonstrate a proper deep breath so that in case anybody's been trained improperly, you'll leave and then you exhale only through your mouth. You hold your breath in between the inhale and exhale, and these inhale exhales have to be incredibly slow. And the more you practice this, the more you're going to be able to slow it down. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate just how slow. All right, here I go. Inhaling.
Alex,
Okay, I'm full, I'm holding. And exhale. Okay, now it's important to check in with yourself. Notice what it is about your body that feels slightly different. I can feel it. Now I recommend to my patients, you'll notice that took about 30 seconds. So that's how slow it is. And I use my body to inhale and I use my body to exhale so my brain understands what's happening. Then I watch with my body. I say to myself, what is it about my body that feels better? It feels more relaxed now. That turns this system off. And I tell my patients to do this 2 to 3 times in a row, but definitely do it seated because you can get a little lightheaded. So, but usually 2 or 3 deep breaths will just shut that system right off. Now, the second thing is a technique that I use with almost all of my patients, and that is called bilateral sound therapy. And I'm going to give you a great resource for this in just a moment, but let me tell you how it works first. So you're going to get this music or nature sounds, you're going to download it, and I'll tell you where in a moment. And then you take earbuds and you plug in, and you close your eyes, and then you listen to the sound, and you're going to hear it in your right ear, and then your left ear. And then it's going to be in your right ear, and then your left ear, so on. And you'll notice that as this happens, that your eyes very naturally start to track that sound from left to right. And you won't have to force it. It happens very naturally. And when that happens, a brain wave begins to form from one hemisphere crossing over the top to the other and back and forth. So the brain wave is following this across the top of your brain and crossing over the midline sections of the two hemispheres. That particular brain wave shuts this whole amygdala system off, and then your frontal lobe begins to light back up. This is where problem solving, coping, all of that good stuff happens. So the two really just seem like they can't compete with each other. And typically speaking, 99.9% of the time, the music beats the amygdala. So my favorite resource in the whole wide world is David Grand. And he actually terms his Bi-Lateral sound. And my favorite album that I use of his is called Brain Spotting. And you can find him on YouTube, on Spotify, and on iTunes, or you can go to davidgrand.com and buy his CDs if you prefer it that way. But that's who I think is the resource is just the best. David Grand, G-R-A-N-D. I think he was one of the sort of inventors of this, of the early days of this. And again, I just think his product is terrific. So that's whom I recommend. Lastly, I want to talk about decision making, because as we were saying during the first 10 minutes of this, there's a lot of heavy stuff that's coming with this COVID-19. There's going to be a lot of fallout, and there's a lot that you just can't control with this. But what you can control is your decision as to how you're going to handle this situation. That is within your control. You know, you need to decide that this is either a time that you're going to use for the better, or you're going to fail to use it at all. Life is not on pause. You know, I want you all to remember that. Life has not stopped. So how do you want to come out of this? What kind of a better person do you want to be? Do you want to learn something new? For me, I've decided to take master classes online, my favorite author being David Sedaris. And so I'm taking his master class on being a better storyteller. I hope to be able to use that in Rotary. And I'm also taking some cooking classes with Thomas Keller. So can't wait for that. I want to be a better Rotarian from this, a better neighbor. You know, I thought I was an okay neighbor, but I'm becoming a better neighbor because of this. I think that there's going to be almost a renaissance of the human spirit as an outcome, as a benign outcome of this. We're going to value things really differently, whether it be products or how we interact with one another. The human touch will certainly be valued differently forever. You know, some people are never going to want to touch anyone ever again. Other people like me, if you even make eye contact at me, I'm going to hug you. I miss human touch beyond belief. I love the Zoom meeting and getting out there to, you know, being all over the world with Rotary, but, you know, I love being with my fellow Rotarians. So how we value things is going to change. I was born in 1967, and in my generation, we grew up eating dinner together every single night with our families at 6 o'clock sharp. That's when dinner was served, and we all sat at the kitchen table and had dinner together. I'm not sure in the last 20 years when people stopped doing that, but they stopped. However, I'm noticing that's coming back. People are eating together. Families are spending time together, quality time. So there's going to be these renaissances that I think we'll see that will change people really powerfully. You know, at the end of this, yes, we're all going to be very different, but hopefully you'll be different for the better. But that choice certainly is yours. Recommend that bilateral sound to them and to tell them to use it at their 2-hour increments. You cannot overuse this stuff. It is good for sleep, anxiety, depression, frustration, anger management, irritability. It's great for focus. That is one way I take care of myself, because I do this all day long. I plug into my stuff and I take just, you know, 6 to 12 minutes and I close my eyes, and it is so refreshing, and it is so just, I have a hard time even telling you how it makes you feel, but it just kind of recenters you. It's kind of like a medication. It just it just kind of brings you back to like neutral. So even if we get them back into a neutral zone, that's a positive thing. For you have to rest the brain, you have to rest the soul. So I would tell them to start using that as their break, at least 2-3 times a day. You know, most of my folks say that most of the songs are about 6 minutes long, and that's because the science of it says that it works within that time frame. So you know, everyone can take 5 to 6 minutes.
I have a lot of volunteers. We are doing massive amounts of food distribution daily. We are at the point now where, because of the restrictions, we are also masked. And one of the things that we brought up in our internal discussion amongst the volunteers is that we have maybe a minute to 2 minute tops with individuals that come in their cars, and you can see the depression, you can see not necessarily the hopelessness, but you know it's weighing on them. Without the masks, it was one thing. You can show a smile. What type of hints might you have, since we're behind the mask, that in a short period of time we can do, since you don't have the facial expressions? Is there anything you could recommend that we could do to help cheer them up, other than just a hi, how you doing, which doesn't really mean anything?
Absolutely. That's a great question, because yeah, like you said, a lot of our interactions are masked or so short. So I've seen a lot of clever masks. First of all, people are painting smiles on their masks. I would really encourage, one of my colleagues cut out a big pair of lips, red lips that she had printed, and she's got it taped on her mask, and she changes it up. Sometimes her mouth on, you know, things like that. You can put a face on a stick. It can be your, you can print your own faces and put them on sticks that say, you know, actually smiling, so you can hold it up so they can see, you know, the part of your mouth that's missing, so they can see you smiling. You could have, you know, signs that you're wearing around your neck that says, I'm smiling at you, we love you, virtual hugs. You can do these sorts of things, you know, be silly, you know, mix it up. If you have 1 or 2 people in your group who are kind of silly, like me and maybe Tiffany are, you know, we're not afraid to, like, you know, do little dances and things. And so if you've got those people, let them be the ones who are, you know, cheerleading, you know, it'll be over soon, big posters, you know, light at the end of the tunnel, hang in there, we love you. Any of that old fashioned cheerleading. You know, what year were you born?
58.
Okay, so remember, and when we were in high school, you know, do you remember what cheerleaders were like? Do you remember what pep rallies were like?
Yeah.
Think of a pep rally. Think of, you know, cheerleading for every person that comes through there. Maybe you have the neighborhood kids, you know, make little draw pictures and have thank you notes and hang in their notes, and you stick that on their windshield, or, you know, stuff that in their window when they're coming by. Anything like that, just think pep rally. And, you know, you can clap for them when they come in, just so they're like going, what's going on? It's not just food distribution, but it's, we care.
Great points, thanks.
Okay, good.
This is great advice, Mary. Thank you so much. All right, so if nobody else, yeah, everybody's giving you. Yeah, so in, as many of you know, I used to work in at the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind. And so for those of you who don't know, if you want to applaud to a deaf community, you do this. And I think this works great in Zoom meetings, because, you know, that way everybody can see it. So this is the sign. You guys learned the new ASL sign today. This is a sign for applause.